what I call myself as the owner-operator or the lead artist at theater-masks.com. The business theater-masks.com as a web-based business, I started 18 years ago. I think I made the first mask for myself when I was a senior undergraduate at the College of Worcester. When I graduated from undergrad, I went to Paris, France to study. I did my conservatory work at the International School of Theatre Jacques Lecoq in Paris, France. And the whole first year of the school was spent under masks, using masks for actor training. And when I graduated from the conservatory, I went to Switzerland and began teaching to earn a living at that time. And I didn't have masks to teach with, and I couldn't afford to buy them, so I started making them for myself. And as years went by, I began to have quite a collection of masks in the background. A long period of time when I was on tour with a company out of Philadelphia, and the motor that we used to drive all of the performances that we created was driven by magic, illusion, masks, and puppets. I was the mask maker and the puppet maker for that company, and I had developed a huge portfolio of work and was printing it out every time I applied for a job. And there was this thing called the internet, and my friend was a web designer, and so I asked him to put my portfolio online on a website so that I would stop spending money printing it out. And he suggested that we set up a commercial website to sell masks and wound up with a really successful international-based business. These masks are different than masks used purely for costume or ritual or celebratory use. Masks for theater and performance are referred to as living form or living sculpture. They're designed to change expression and change form as they move through space. So if you're looking at a mask straight on, it looks different in this position than it does in this position, than it does in this position, and then it does in this position. I start by sculpting in clay, in a water-based clay, and then once the sculpture is completed, I'll create a plaster negative from that sculpture, and then this material, which starts as a liquid, gets poured into that mold. It sits for a period of 4 hours or so and then gets poured out, and what's left behind is this film, which is the mask in the end. Color is a pretty, it's a pretty significant and meaningful thing. Colors speak to us from a cultural point of view in a very specific way. Red, for example, means something very different for us than it does for the Asian cultures. And when we put it on a face, it begins to mean something significantly different than what we might see otherwise. And so the colors that go into pieces are very decided. But if a client asks for the paint treatment to be different, then I'll go ahead and paint them in a different way. Every mask is different, but they're all trimmed in the same way. In the same way that the finished painting is all, it's one technique for all the masks, but every mask is different. So you have to really learn the technique that is applied to everything, because it's a freehand thing. It's not like computer design or anything. It's not cookie cutter, and therefore every mask actually will be a unique piece when it leaves the studio. One could ask the artist, why do it at all? Because it's so difficult to make a life in it. And I do it because I believe that it gives something into the world that is necessary. Masks are stories. Each mask has within it a story. And stories are important because they reveal to us our humanity. And each one of these masks has something very significant, profound, and poetic within it. That is a revelation of sorts about each individual's humanity who puts it on, but there's also a universal element to it, because as human beings, we move through the life and experience it in a universal way. I experience joy and sorrow and grief and rage and lust and jealousy and pride in the same ways that a very primitive individual does in an undeveloped culture on this planet, and in the same way that someone from the Far East does, or from South America, or from our northern continents. And the masks bring us together. They provide for us an understanding that human beings exist as a single species on this planet. And I think the more, as artists, that we reach to communicate and share that with others, then we can, person by person, provoke empathy and create change for something positive in the world that we live in. So that's why I continue to do it.